Welcome to the Built to Last podcast, a community for coaches founded on the principles encourage, equip, and empower. We are performance coaches working for eternal purpose. Now, here are your co-hosts, Charlie Ray and Justin Bentavania.
You know, something I kind of talk about with my players a lot, the jersey that they wear. On the front of the jersey, it says Tulane, or it has a slugger bird. It has some kind of symbol that represents the university. What does that mean? Hey, man, that means that's your teammates. You're representing your school. You're representing your coaches.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Built to Last. We have another fantastic episode. Really excited for you guys to listen today. Guys, our speaker today that we interviewed is Coach Cory Houston. And Coach Houston and I, we crossed paths during my graduate assistantship at Florida International University back in 2016 to 2018, actually. And he actually left there and went to Tulane. And he is a phenomenal man of God. You guys are going to get a lot out of this episode. He's one of my mentors, one of my friends, and I really, really like this episode.
And guys, if you're at all interested in baseball-specific programming, structure, and things like that, I know I am. I work with baseball here at Hofstra University, and I'm always trying to learn and take things from all different people. And so in this episode, if you are interested in baseball-specific programming and structure, I think you guys are really going to take a lot out of this one. But beyond the baseball-specific side of things, we also went into core values and on how Coach leads his family. And so I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. Hey guys, sorry to hold you back even a second longer from this episode, but we just wanted to pause for a second and tell you about something that is really a first-time experience for us, but we are opening an online store. And if this community, if this ministry has blessed you in any way and you'd like to give back, we would love your support. These things don't happen for free, unfortunately, and it would just be so great and such a blessing if you guys would be interested in purchasing some Built to Last gear. It might even make a great gift for the holidays. And so, Charlie, do you want to talk a little bit about the online store?
Yeah, so the way it works, guys, if you were to go onto our main website, that's www.teambuilttolast.com. If you look at the top right, there's a tab that says Online Store. If you click that, it will take you directly to our site, which is the online store. We're sponsoring with East Bay. They're helping us here. And guys, it is an online store, and so it's open for a limited time. It closes on November 29th at 11:59 p.m. And basically the way it works is you find something you like. For example, we have a lot of different gear. We have some short sleeve hoodies. We have a long sleeve hoodie. There's a lot of different options, guys. We even have a polo, a really nice polo shirt, and a t-shirt. There's a regular t-shirt. There's gray and black, and there's also male and female. So we have sizes for everybody. All you have to do is click on it. You fill out your information. And then when the online store closes, which like I said, it will close on the 29th of November, 2020, then it will be 2 weeks, and then it will ship directly to whatever address you put on it. Guys, this is an opportunity to help bless the ministry, to continue to have great content, and also to just help us with the cost of having a podcast and having a ministry up. Also, another opportunity, guys, we are always looking for support through sponsors. And so if you know anybody or would be willing to be a yearly sponsor, that would be phenomenal. It would help us a lot. And just reach out to us, and we would love that support.
Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to Built to Last. We got an amazing episode today. We're with Cory Houston, who's at Tulane, who works with baseball and also the track and field team, specifically with the throws. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Charlie. Glad to be here, brother.
Awesome. Glad to have you on the show. And we'll just jump right into it, Coach. So just go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background and your journey into strength and conditioning, and then also a little bit about your philosophy.
Okay. Background-wise, man, my mom, she remarried, I guess, whenever I was at the age of 10. My dad, stepfather, I should say, he was an amateur or avid power lifter. So I'd probably say, and he was also a coach at the high school and junior high that I attended. So he's one at a young age, whereas he was competing in things, I was there with him a lot of times. We'd go up there and he would train with his training partners and things like that me and cousins and teammates at the school I was attending, we would go up there. And we used to have, it'd be like a Sunday fun day. I always remember going up, it was like a 2-hour post church, we would go to the grandma's house, eat a potluck lunch, and then we would go train for 2 hours or so. And that was like the heavy leg day. And then we'd go play pickup basketball for like 2 hours after.
Classic.
Nice. I don't think I could do that anymore, but that's kind of where it started. And like I said, it got me into powerlifting. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. Powerlifting the whole time. Football led into basketball. Basketball went into baseball. And like I said, powerlifting was just all the time kind of thing. Had some successes in it. Went to college, had a scholarship to play baseball at the Division II level at the University of West Alabama. Still stayed with training. Obviously, it was something that came easy. I mean, I had a good background in it. I know whenever I was in college, I was probably focusing more on actually doing athletic training at first, that first year. And as we kind of got going, I got accepted into the program, and it got to the point where I had to log clinical hours. So you had to do like 500 clinical hours on top of playing ball and on top of these things. So it put me in a decision to be made, like, what do I do? I selected just to continue to play baseball, and I changed my course to where actually I was looking at physical therapy. And so that progressed along until my senior year of college while we're still playing. And the state of Mississippi, is which where I'm from, they changed their postgraduate physical therapy program from a 2-year to a 4-year. And so I was like, man, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do 8 years of school to do physical therapy. And then I was in one of those situations I needed to do an internship anyway to finish my undergrad. I had a cousin that worked at Mississippi State University. He was the director of football operations at the time. I was like, hey man, I want to do something close to home. Can you introduce me to the strength coach? Because that was something that, like I said, I did in high school doing the powerlifting. Felt like something easy. I could relate to it. And long story short, I did my first internship in the summer of 2008 with Ben Pollard, who was the current strength conditioning coach at Mississippi State. That had been under Sylvester Croom's football staff. And once I did that, man, and I found out that could be an avenue in which I could have a profession and a livelihood with, because that's something I really hadn't thought about at that time. That's something that kind of stuck. And so after I finished that internship, I actually went back to my undergrad. I did a GA-ship there in the exercise science department. I was teaching 3 classes a semester while I was getting my master's in art and teaching. And then when that finished up, like I said, within that 6 months after that internship had finished, I wanted to do another one and kind of get my feet even further embedded into the field. I actually went back to Mississippi State. At this time, they had made a coaching change, and Dan Mullen was the head football coach at the time, and Matt Bayless was the director of football strength and conditioning. Same deal, my cousin was still there. I called him, hey man, can you introduce me, kind of thing, get me through the door. It actually didn't really work out where like I walked over and then he would introduce me to Coach Bayless. I actually just kind of cold cocked him and showed up at the weight room and was like, hey coach, I'm looking for an internship. I did this and that. And he told me no. And so I'm just kind of like, okay, so like what I do? And I'm in one of those situations like, hey, this is what I want to do. Like I'm going to have to live at home. I got to go somewhere that's relatively close by, and I want to work at the highest level of college I can, which at the time would have been like Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Alabama, in terms of where I live at type deal. I went ahead and got into grad school at Mississippi State because they did have an exercise science department. I knew that was going to be a prerequisite of me being a GA at Mississippi State anyway. So I was kind of flipping my own bill. And I remember going back to Coach Bayless probably every 2 weeks or so until about middle of October. He finally said yes. So I just kept like annoying him in a sense to where he finally said yes. And I remember coming on, like I said, it was about the middle of the football season. It was one of those deals where like, hey, you can come observe. And I remember just standing there kind of outside his office, and my hands were like in my pocket, and I'm just watching, like nothing going on. I just remember in the middle of the lift, Coach Bayless is in the middle of like coaching this pull station. He like stops and turns around and looks at me, and I'm like, what is going on? And he starts yelling at me, and I'm like, what's happening? And he starts getting on to me about my body language, of me just observing and me not being more engaged in what's happening during the course of the lift. So long story short, I stayed there that fall, the rest of that half semester. I came back, did another internship in the spring. Okay. And then after the end of that spring, Coach Bayless offered me a GA-ship to work there. So it took me about a month or a semester and a half of an internship, I guess, to earn his trust and kind of develop more or less a rapport with him and a relationship where he could trust me for one of those roles. I could tell guys like a GA-ship at the time. I mean, it was Bayless and 2 assistants, and it was 3 GAs, and that was your football staff. Like, this is before the 5-man rule and all that. So like your GAs, I mean, they're practically full-time coaches, or you got to get guys that aren't necessarily cutting their teeth quite as much. So I was very blessed to get that opportunity. And then luck came to have whenever my GA was finished. I had the privilege of working with 2 assistants at the time that went on to be directors. Chad Smith went to FIU, obviously, you know him, Charlie, and then and Coach Townsend, he actually was the director at Marshall for a brief period of time. Both of them football directors, and as I kind of finished up, both of them had opportunities. I know the Marshall one would have been a GA. I didn't necessarily want to do that type deal. And then the thing with Chad, I actually had to wait around for about 6 months for him to have the position open. So yeah, there was about a 6-month period where I was having to go home, live with my parents, privately train, try to stay connected with people, that kind of thing, until God opened a door for me to go down to Miami and be with Chad Smith. So, and then like I said, that was a 4-year process to where now I'm currently going into year 5 at Tulane. Like you mentioned before, I just run the baseball program at the university, and then I work with the track throws specifically. So yeah, I mean, this thing started in summer of 2008 to where we are now.
Wow. Yeah. And that's an incredible journey. I love hearing everybody's story because you see God working in different ways. And like, that must've been so difficult you did 2 master's degrees, and then you also had to earn the second one as an intern. I mean, talk a little bit about that journey of just having to trust the Lord and having to wait through that. And then even you got 2 master's degrees and all this experience, and now you just got to go home for 6 months until there's no guarantee in this field. And so, yeah, talk a little bit about just having to trust the Lord and what that looks like with the waiting process.
Yeah, you got to have faith, man. Like, I remember telling myself on paper, like, hey, I got a degree, I got 2 masters, I'm certified to the SCA, I did a GA-ship, I'm sending out resumes, I'm not getting the responses that I want or even any feedback. You know, I mean, the Lord's blessed me with a wonderful family. Like I said, man, I have a support staff, and I couldn't have done it without them. Like, my wife at the time was having to work. We had a young child, living off minimal income. Like I said, we was living with my parents, which opened their door to us for that period of time. I mean, like I said, I'm just very blessed from that standpoint to have that kind of support structure around me to make where I'm at now possible. It wasn't easy for sure, but like I tell people a lot of time, learn and grow from that. Like, you pray for strength, but God's not always going to give you the easy answer. Like, you want strength, hey man, you gotta work for it a little bit, go through some get told no a lot of times, and learn how to deal with that mentally, physically, find a way to get it done. So I said things have worked out well for me up to this point. So
yeah, it's been super cool to be a small part of your story, but just to see your transition, even going from working with all these different sports. I mean, you were the right-hand man to Chad Smith, Coach Smith at FIU. And then, you know, God opened the door for you to be closer to family and transition into a baseball only role where it's a little bit less stressful. You have more free time to really pour into the relationships with the athletes. If you could kind of tie into like what the decision was that confirmed that with your transition. I mean, you were football this, football that, and you worked all these other sports. I mean, you were in charge of the internships, like you helped train me as a graduate assistant, and then you go to baseball only. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about that transition.
Yeah, man. It, you know, like I mentioned before, I was a multi-sport athlete, dealt with baseball, football, basketball. So I kind of understood the sports. You know, I've always told myself, if I could work football or baseball, I would probably be happy, even basketball. And then I would be able to deal with anything else. But, you know, the job itself ticked a bunch of boxes from the standpoint of, like I said, proximity from home. My wife was going to be able to get a job. It would give us an avenue to actually get a nicer place to live at, better school systems, paid more, work less, be home more, be able to invest more time in the family, be more involved with the churches that I'd be around. You know, I mean, it was, like I said, it checked so many things that it was a no-brainer. You know, I mean, that's something I'd prayed about at the time. I was like, God, just make the decision easy. Like, don't make me feel like it's one of those things where, like, this is a pro, this is a con. Like, no, it's like a home run. Like, it's no doubt. That's how it was. So, I mean, like I said, that was a good thing. I mean, yeah, I hated to leave Chad Smith and FIU at the time. I mean, I love the guy like a brother, but it was an opportunity that would better myself and my family and give me an opportunity to grow in the field. So I took it, man. So, and like I said, it's been great up to this point.
Yeah, that's awesome, Coach. And if you wouldn't mind kind of tying into like, okay, now that you've been in the baseball only, and now you kind of said you have track and field, the throwers a little bit, tie into your training philosophy. I know you and I have talked about it before, but just to help the listeners kind of understand your training philosophy, and then also kind of how you coach, your coaching philosophy, your style.
Right. Well, some of it, I mean, you have to think about, I mean, I work in the college setting. I think each setting's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're dealing private, professional, or collegiate, because that's something more or less. I have a limited amount of hours. This is things we go over with. And NCAA allows 20 operational hours within team period and 8 outside of team period. So, like, you have to get together with your coaching staff and dictate more or less how many hours are going to be devoted to the sport and how many hours are going to be devoted to the actual training aspect of it. So a lot of times that's going to dictate the type of programs and things that I'm writing. But philosophy-wise, you know, it's a mixed methods program. You know, I utilize a lot of different training methodologies, whether it be ground-based movements, Olympic movements, HIIT training, bodybuilding, using bands, accommodated resistance, rate of force development. You know, it's so many tools of the trade, and there's just times of the year that, I mean, one has to take precedence. I mean, at the end of the day, the guys or the females that I work with, they're not power lifters, they're athletes, and, you know, so you have to kind of evaluate what it is that they do, and then the time that whenever I'm designing protocols, they're to enhance themselves physically, but also try to more or less help them in the respective sport that they play. So, I mean, yeah, we squat, but like, I'm not necessarily going to squat 52 weeks out of the year on a linear periodization with the goal of increasing their max 100 pounds, you know, for like a meet or whatever. So, like I said, we can utilize back squat, front squat, safety bar squats, split squats, single leg squats. I mean, you kind of name it, more or less. And even then, it could have a certain intent to it, whether it's, like I said, absolute strength, or whether I'm trying to develop speed. Like I said, I use squatting as an explosive movement. Like I said, I don't do a ton of Olympic movements. Like I said, I'll shrug pull and things of that nature. But like I said, I like doing box jumps and weighted squats and weighted jumps and things as much as I do, like I said, cleans and snatches and things of that nature. So, but philosophy-wise, you talk about core values and stuff like that. I mean, I want to instill discipline in all of our guys and females. There's accountability. Like, you have to show up on time. I like people being dressed the same. You got to have energy when you enter the room. You know, I'm never going to ask any of my athletes to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. You know, I mean, I have to provide juice as well. I mean, I talk to our players like, hey, man, I get it. Like, there's days you're going to walk in the door and you may not be quite feeling it, and that's my job to pick you up, or that's your teammate to kind of pick you up. And I get it, there's going to probably be days, I mean, that maybe I'm not on top of my game, and, hey, guys, I rely on you. Hey, if you see me slipping a little bit, hey, man, let me know, you know, and I'll pick it up. You know, it's kind of, like I said, it's a collaboration, more or less, and the guys and female, they have to understand that. You know, there has to be accountability across the board. That's something that's improved in my 4 years here at Tulane in terms of where we started to where we are now, to where I don't have to count reps and watch guys quite as much as I did year one. I mean, I have enough guys that's been around me for 3 and 4 years, and like, hey man, I've shown them what I want, the type of 10 I need it done at. I mean, I know like earlier in the programs you wanted to like, guys, this is how we do a pull-up. And I literally get in front of them and I do it and I show them to the intent and the effort more or less that I need it done, to where they get visual stimulus, like, so I was talking about a lot of times, like younger coaches, more or less like we like using visual aids. And it's like the older I get, I can't do as many visual aids. I used to laugh being at FIU. I would start at baseball and do 20 box jumps by the time I do position guys and pitchers. And then I go to women's tennis and I'm out on the court and I'm doing split jumps and broad jumps. And then I go out to softball and I'm showing them how to bound. And like, by the end of the day, I'm dead. And I can't even train myself. So it's like, I have to kind of pick and choose my times there. But no, it's been tremendous. Like I said, it's funny. Like, it's one of those things, like I have basic rules when you come in, hey guys, if you yawn, you look unmotivated, it's 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups. And it's something that the guys have even embraced, because it's to the point I don't even always catch them. Like, I just have some of my seniors be like, you yawn, 10 push-ups, go now. And like, they'll make their teammates do that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's like they're embracing the protocol. They understand what it is we want and where we're wanting to go and take the program. And, it's been really exciting to be a part of it for sure.
Appreciate you sharing all those insights on your program, Coach. I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there, and something that we haven't done really on our podcast so far, where we really dive into one sport. And I'm sure a lot of listeners might want to know a little bit more about the baseball side of programming, myself included. I know Charlie works with baseball as well. Do you mind touching a little bit more on your programming philosophy specifically for baseball?
Yeah, sure. We'll go over that. And, at the end of the day, man, like, I mean, there's no secret formula. I've always told even my players, like, guys, in like intro meetings, like, look, man, everybody's going to squat, everybody's going to deadlift, everybody's going to press and the pull. I mean, a lot of times I like to evaluate our athletes first. Like I even tell them these recruiting visits, like, in a perfect world, I got 35 guys, all 35 of them are going to bend and move great. After initial evaluations, though, that's not always the case. So in a perfect general pop program, everybody's back squatting. But if guys have more or less an ankle issue, core instability, whatever it is, I'm blessed enough to have other training modalities, whether it be a safety bar, whether we need to front squat, or whether we actually have a line of Pendulum Rogers athletic equipment where, man, we can pro squat or hip press, or, that's one thing. Like I'm talking about, you can't necessarily be a slave to the guard with a lot of these guys. Baseball guys don't tend to be the most athletic top to bottom, but yet it's such a skill sport to where, man, you could be really good at spinning a baseball and getting it over a plate, but, man, you may not be able to bend very well. You may not be able to run very fast or put out a lot of force. And those are just things, like I said, that you have to take into consideration when doing program design. So, like I said, I mean, I'd say 75% of my guys get kind of put into it, like I said, the general pop program, and about 25% of them have to have some kind of exercise change. Now, with that being said, I still follow the same format in terms of a lifting protocol. Something I've kind of went over Charlie with in the past about, hey, a lot of times you come in, do whatever the general or the specific warm-up to the day is, and then, like, hey, we're going to do our explosive work first, whether it be Olympic, or whether it be some kind of a jump or plyometric or just whatever it's going to be. And then we just go into what I call just a squat, a hinge, a push, and a pull. And then you have whatever specific sport-specific auxiliary movement. So it's kind of a 5 to 6 prong workout in general. So like I've already kind of went over the squat. And like I said, just in terms of an exercise selection and which to pick from. And like I said, we just plug in our posterior chain, then a push or a pull. I mean, pushes for guys can be anything from a push-up all the way up to a straight bar, to a dumbbell press, to band work, you name it. It's once again, it's one of those things. It's kind of crazy. I've seen guys that can press a lot in terms of a bar or dumbbell, but you flip them over and do a push-up, and that's a whole other thing. Their ability to stabilize their core and have their scaps move correctly, and it's really unique to see. And I think this is one of those things you have to kind of trust your eyes when you evaluate your guys, and then kind of put them in the best situation to help them stay healthy and to stay on the field and give them the best chance for success.
Yeah, and staying healthy obviously is key with all sports, and specifically with the baseball pitchers and with the hitters. What's the difference between training those two groups, specifically because you can't train them exactly the same, even though they are, baseball players, but it's like, okay, how specific do you get? We train from athletes to then a sport to then even positions. It's like, well, what does that look like within the positions? What's your differences between those two?
The easy thing, I guess, for the position and the pitchers, for the most part, the pitchers' programs are set up almost a year. So whenever we're all like out of season or off season, in season, that's how I like to refer to it. The guys are scheduled to throw their pins and scheduled to throw live, however many innings that is. Now set up their program accordingly. Like I've kind of mentioned to you before, when it comes to training baseball guys, like dude, it's a 7-day-a-week kind of thing where like I'm bringing some part of the team in to train to where it's just pretty much I'm setting up. I'm going to have an undulating program. It's normally a 3-day-a-week program. Once again, I've already kind of went over the format, but then I just have kind of a high intensity, low intensity, moderate intensity selection for, like, say, day one's a back squat, day two could be just a pistol squat, day three could be a lunge or a deadlift, and like just pretty much the loading parameter is dictating high, light, and moderate. And it's all set up, like I said, whenever they're expected to return and throw. So a lot of times when they come in, they throw day one. The next day I'm going to come in, do their heavier lower body, lighter upper body type work, give their upper body a chance to recover a little bit. Their day two is going to be more their explosive day, whether we're doing Olympic work, plyometrics, whatever that nature is. It tends to be their more aggressive upper body day is in that day two segment. Like I said, it's a lighter lower body, pistol squats, lighter lunges, single leg RDLs, that kind of thing. Day three, the volume tends to be a lot lower. I tend to use deadlifts more there. Try to get more like central nervous system activation. The reps are down where guys won't be quite as fatigued as they're going into their next outing per se. But anyway, that's for the most part, like I said, it's a 3-day total body type program set off when they throw. Now the position guys don't get that luxury. They tend to get kind of stuck on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. Tuesday, Thursdays are just kind of in the morning. Saturdays tend to be depending. So I give them some options. And Saturday, when we go into team period, it's kind of a voluntary day. So I have an option where they can do like a CNS primer lift prior to practice, or just have a post lift, in which I can come in and do a little bit different stuff with them. But the format is relatively similar in terms of the exercise selection. I am a little bit more aggressive in terms of weight loading. With the position guys with upper body movements. With the pitchers, the volume stays higher. Like I say with them, I'd rarely ever go under like 5 reps on a push or a pull or something like that. With the pitchers, position guys, yeah, I'll get a little bit heavier with them, and we'll get into some triples, and sometimes I'll give them a chance to hit a single or a double. Things of that nature. Lower body wise, I tend to squat pitchers more than I do position players in general. Just whether it's just an exercise selection from a single leg to a lunge. The position guys that tend to do more reverse lunge work and deadlift work is kind of their secondary lower body stuff. I'll probably keep the intensity a little bit higher with them there as well. But just overall, because one thing, I guess I'm blessed enough with the position guys, I do get to plug myself in 2 to 3 times a week within the course of practice, and we actually integrate some speed work into practice. With the pitchers, I'm a little more hit or miss, just depending on how the practice is laid out. So like position guys, normally I stagger it. So if we're lifting Tuesday, Thursday, I'm probably going to run Wednesday, Friday kind of thing. It's normally just plugged in right after the warm-ups, which is super simple. That's just something I got with Coach Jewett about. Said, hey, Coach, I think if we're only going to lift mandatorily twice, how can I insert myself and how can I help these guys? And we kind of came to the deal about doing the sprint work, that kind of deal, to where after I do just the general warm up, the pitchers will then take off and do band activation and things that they need to be doing to prep the throw. And then I'll either keep the position guys there on the field, or I'll transition them over to the secondary field. And like I said, we'll have about a 20-ish minute segment to where I can go through a plyometric, I can go through a resisted run, I can go through a little bit of overspeed, give them 1 to 3 reps at maximal velocities. That's something I always went over with Coach. It's a trained skill. Like, if you don't sprint fast, you're not going to get faster, and then you're not actually going to have your body prepared for the rigors of the game. I was like, how do you expect to always sprint at 85, 90%? And all of a sudden you get to game one, you hit an infield single and you need to leg it out. And all of a sudden you're trying to cut it on, and like, you're not prepared for that. So the guys are at a heightened risk of soft tissue injuries. And that's why I kind of went over to the coach. I mean, that's part of the injury prevention protocol, is being able to kind of touch into that a little bit. That's something that we're even kind of progressing into the season, where like I like taking over the course of a game, I'll just be in the dugout with my stopwatch, and I'm taking home the first times, and I'm taking down tallies of what I consider a high-speed rep, and I'm just kind of keeping a log of what our guys are doing, because at the end of a weekend, there's some guys that could have had 20, 30-plus reps that I'd consider high speed, and then some guys that might have had just 1 or 2. Realistically, because a lot of that's just indicative of the position you play, the type of player you are. That's something I told us, like, we need to, say, Monday, Tuesday, or something like that, just more or less get that plugged in, just so I can keep guys, like I said, as prepared as I can be, and keep them on the field. So that's something that we got to install into the program, because that's something, I guess, every year I've been here, I've been able to insert myself a little bit more, just as me and Coach Jewett have kind of developed more of a rapport and a trust. And that's something we kind of joke about as me and him are the OGs. Like, we're the only guys that's been here since day one. Everybody else has came and gone, and we're kind of the old guys now. So it's been good for sure.
Well, Coach, talking about, I think towards the end of that, you started talking about the in-season period. Do you mind just keying in on the differences between the times a year in your program now a little bit? So in-season versus off-season?
Perfect. Like I said, everything's kind of a 7-day program. You know, baseball, we play 4 to 5 games a week. You know, it gets kind of difficult. NCAA doesn't do me any favors in terms of allocating time for strength and conditioning. So a perfect week, we probably have like a realistically a Wednesday midweek, and we just have a 3-game set. Position guys are training on Tuesdays and Thursdays, kind of thing. Relief pitchers, they're coming in post-game on Sunday or Monday. I give them that option. Monday's kind of the off day, but hey, guys, like, hey, if we're playing Tuesday or Wednesday midweek, I want to get it up as far as I can. So look, I'll do an option post-game Sunday, or if you want to come in on Monday, the guys do a tremendous job on that. I mean, the past 2 years, I don't have guys miss. Like I said, they respect the program. They understand what the weight room can do for them. So I give them some rope there. Same thing, like if I have a Tuesday game, I have to open that up a little bit more for the position guys, and I'll give them that Sunday post or that Monday afternoon kind of style of lift. And I kind of put it in their ballpark. You know, like I said, that's something I'll kind of hit on later. Is just about being accessible to your players. You know, just letting you know that you care for them, that you're trying to set up multiple times, and just trying to feel like you have their best interest in mind, and empower them in a way to where they can have some of the decision of when to come train. So in season, I mean, you have to be a little more flexible. I mean, yeah, the core values are still there in terms of expectations of when you walk in the door, and the type of training that's going to happen, and what we're going to be doing, and the manner of how it goes about. But with that being said, I mean, I can't be like a slave to the card. Like I said, I have to kind of trust my eyes and what the guys are doing. But anyway, the lifts are about 2 times a week. Position guys, I do have actually I have 3 or 4 other lifts, and I have some guys that partake in those. One of them is more like just what I would call secondary stuff, injury prevention type things, and I have a CNS kind of day. Now, not everybody utilizes those. I got probably about 3 or 4 guys that might use those on the regular. So, I mean, I got some guys that could be in the room 3 to 4 times, but they're only really mandated to be in there twice. So at least that's my expectation. And like I said, that's something that's improved over the course of time. Now, the pitchers, like I kind of hit on before, like the relief guys, I mean, they kind of get the shaft of the deal in terms of, I'm kind of at the whims of the pitching coach in a sense of when they need to be accessible. And that's the communication piece that me and Coach Latham have to be in constant communication going into a weekend, after a weekend, who's starting on the midweek, who's the first guy out of the bullpen on Fridays, those kind of things to where I can alter and change the intensity of the lift when the guy walks in the door, depending on their immediate need going into the next set of games. Because realistically, I probably write a 3-day protocol, but I only really get 2. And then I can just kind of rotate them depending on the intensity that I want to put on the athlete. And so that's probably the easiest way I like to regulate versus necessarily changing a bunch of reps and schemes and things. I can just kind of give them a different lift. And like I said, I've got to that point to where I can trust my guys to do that. Like I said, year 1, I couldn't have done that. But being year 4, like I said, we've developed that rapport where I can do it. Now, your starting pitchers, like I kind of hit on it earlier, that turns into like a 7-day protocol. I got a Friday, Saturday, Sunday arm. I sit down with all 3 of our guys. I kind of go over, dude, I've done it about any way you could probably slice it by this point in terms of days, times, pre-practice, post-practice, 6 hours before, after pin, before pin, the day after pin. It's just something that where I have to sit down with the guys. What are you comfortable with? I evaluate them. Some of it has to do with the training age of the guy, like a senior. Realistically, I could look at it 2 ways because it depends on the guys. Hey, his training age is up to where he can actually handle more training. Some guys like that. But then some of it too, I look at it from the standpoint, depending on the guy, hey man, this guy's trained with me for 4 years. He's plenty strong enough. I probably only need to get him in every 3 or 4 days just to kind of keep his strength levels there and just keep his CNS activated, and he's good. Now, like I said, sometimes I get a freshman in, and he's a guy that I want to have my hands on as much as possible because something I have to look at too is in-season training is the longest unimpeded training block for baseball. It could be 16 to 20 weeks of unimpeded training. Now, obviously, it's not off-season training and whatever else, but I can still work on technique and movement patterns and quality of movement. Those guys can get stronger. Like I said, the younger guys that haven't been in the weight room very much. Dude, like they can get lots of levels of strength very quickly. Like they can adapt. So it's like I said, a lot of it's just kind of my experiences of evaluating guys, the type of programs, and it's more or less like I said, when I bring the guys in, what do you feel good with? And I kind of empower them a little bit. Like I said, I have the format of what it is I want to do, and I might give them a selection of, hey, man, pick this or that. And then I'll program secondarily off of that type deal. So like I said, it just depends a little bit. But like I said, the format is like day after. I tend to front load it. Say if they throw on Friday, Saturday, we're coming in, like I said, heavier lower body, lighter upper, posterior chain deal. The 48-hour out or the Sunday, that would be your heavier upper body, your explosive work, some secondary lower body. Day 3 or 72 hours out, the day before the pen, is just a recovery run. I tend to use tempo runs with those guys. It could be like 30-30, 60-60s, 120s, about 120, but it's about a 1-to-1 distance in terms of that run to a recovery walk jog. Like when I say a tempo run, that's something that's 75, 80% of max velocity. Like I said, it's really just a recovery deal. It's not metabolic. You'll breathe heavy, but you're not going to have a lot of fatigue from it. And we're not working maximal speed on that day. Like I said, it's really just trying to recover from the outing and 2 days of lifting back to back. And then the guys will come out, they'll throw their bullpen, and then I'll just lift them after the bullpen. Like I said, that tends to be, like I said, that deadlift day or that reverse lunge day, the explosive work kind of behind it type deal. And then the day after the pen, which is 48 hours from the outing, we'll just have a sprint day, a plyometric sprint day. And then the day before, that's what I kind of give them the quote-unquote off day because they miss out on the Monday off day that everybody else kind of gets. So like I'll talk to them like, hey guys, if you want an off day, I'll present it here. If you don't want it, have a 10-minute CNS primer, pretty much a glorified warm-up. If you want to partake, we can do that as well. So, I mean, like I said, there's some options there. And like I said, it's just, you need to have answers for questions. Because, I mean, like I said, man, I've dealt with, I mean, it feels like hundreds of starting pitchers by now, and they're all different in just terms of how they've been moved, they think, what it is they think is best, those kind of things. So it's just, you have to have some flexibility, and you have to have multiple programs ready to go. Because, I mean, like I said, there's many different ways to train and develop athletes to where you can get some desired results. So.
Yeah, and the cool thing about what you're saying too is like managing stress. I mean, that's kind of like our job at the end of the day. But like with baseball, you're right. It's like every single pitcher is different, and some guys like to lift right before, right afterwards. And so I think one of the things I wanted to go back and touch on was you were saying be available for the athlete and learn to be flexible. Talk about like what it looks like to be the ideal strength coach, and with the things that you're saying, empowering the athletes, be flexible, be available.
Yeah, ideal strength coach, man. I wrote down a bunch of bullet points. I'm sure there's plenty of other things that we can go over, but I mean, it's one of those things that ideally, obviously, man, everybody's smart, man. Everybody understands multiple methodologies and things like that. To me, that's a prerequisite to the job. So it's just like, that's something I just kind of look over at that point. Like I said, number two, like I said, it's just like you just kind of mentioned, accessible to the student athlete. I want to be there. I want to give them opportunity to see me. Like, man, I've been around it too much where it's like, hey, man, I have a 7 a.m. lift. Oh, coach, you can't make it because XYZ came up. Well, I guess you don't lift. Like, to me, that can't be an excuse. Like, you need to figure out a way of like, hey, man, set up another time to get them there. Hey, like, if you know for a fact, Monday post, I ran in this past spring. I have guys at Tulane University that literally have class from 1 p.m. to like 8 p.m. And that's when I like to train guys in that early afternoon. And I was like, look, brother, no matter what it is we're doing, we're just training post on Sunday. Like, that's kind of your thing. It's just like, you just need to get established in there. So it's like, I need to more or less show importance of training, willingness to want to be there, show that I care, willing to build a relationship with these guys and give them that opportunity to be in there kind of thing. Consistent with discipline is another thing I go to. Treat everybody the same type deal. I'm just consistent across the board. You know what you're going to get with me all the time. You know how I'm going to respond before I probably even say it kind of thing. Like, you've just been around me. Just consistent with coaching, everything that it is that you do. Mm-hmm. Communicate well. You teach in a manner that the athletes can understand and perform. You know, I mean, maybe there's vernacular and stuff that me and you could speak on that my guys won't understand. So I just need to kind of, I don't want to say dumb it down, but just say it in a manner that they can comprehend it more or less, and then they get the desired result that I need out of. Mm-hmm. So just that ability to communicate with your athletes, with your coaches, with support staff. You know, that's something I wrote down later that I'll hit on in terms of, which I knew earlier, is just the ability to communicate up, down, left, and right, and develop more meaningful relationships with guys. In the room, man, you got to have fun, you know, have a sense of humor. I tend to use sarcasm a lot instead of, I'm not necessarily the yeller and the screamer when it comes to get into guys. I mean, I use sarcasm a pretty good bit, and guys, I get the point across in terms of what I need to get done there. But I mean, to me, those are just a handful of bullet points in terms of an ideal strength coach and things that I know I would look forward to. I mean, it's got to be somebody that's respected, you know, I mean, somebody that you feel that more or less knows more about it than you do, and somebody that you can put trust in.
Yeah, and so, Coach, just to circle back a little bit as well, a couple of things that I'm hearing you say a lot is, you know, earlier when you said that you could only lift a few days mandatory, you asked the coach, how can I insert myself more, right? And then even now, when you were explaining that ideal strength coach, you said, are you accessible, right? So I can tell that you're hungry and you're passionate to make an impact, and I truly respect that about you. I know Charlie knows you a little bit better than I do, but it's awesome just hearing you say those things. Would you mind just touch a little bit more on your core values as a person now? So transitioning a little bit outside of the programming philosophy, maybe just more of your personal philosophy.
Yeah, personal philosophy is just kind of how we are at the house, man. You know, discipline, hardworking, consistent, know what you're getting kind of thing. You know, I have that mentality, man. I never want to be outworked. It's never because I'm not trying or I'm not trying to learn or I'm not putting myself out there kind of thing. You know, like I wrote down earlier, embrace the struggle. Like that's something I kind of pride myself on. Learn to have perseverance. You know, I mean, have faith and that the tough experiences more or less that I'm going to go through or God puts me through is going to pay dividends in the future. You know, I mean, that's something, like I said, I really hang my hat on. Like I mentioned before, I mean, I've been told no many of times and just have that ability to bounce back. The personal values, more or less, is like I said, I'm never going to ask my kids or my family to like to do something that I'm not willing to do. I always kind of talk about is like my actions, are they lining up to what it is that I'm saying? Type deal. Like whenever my kids watch me, like I said, I have a 12 and an 8-year-old kid. Am I holding myself in a Christ-like manner or in a manner that I want my kids to hold themselves into? You know, I mean, it's one of those things like if I'm not willing to teach my kids, like who am I relying on to teach my kids? Like if I'm not telling them or pretty much how to do things, like what would I expect? You know, something I kind of talk about with my players a lot. The jersey that they wear, on the front of the jersey, it says Tulane, or it has a slugger bird. It has some kind of symbol that represents the university. What does that mean? I mean, that means that's your teammates. You're representing your school. You're representing your coaches. Anything that you do on the front of the jersey, it reflects on me, like my ability to teach you and like the core values in which we have as a program. Are we abiding, holding each other accountable? And I talk about the name on the back of your jersey. I said, mine is Houston, like for more or less, like I represent my kids. I represent my wife. Like I represent my parents. I'm representing my grandkids that aren't even here yet type deal. To where it's like, I want to hold myself in a manner that's going to respect them, hold myself in a manner that's, that they would be proud of. So, and that's something that I want to instill in my kids for sure.
Yeah, and like I think that's an important point to remember too, that you are representing Christ ultimately at the end of the day. And I think that's an important point to remember, that we are more than just strength coaches. We are ambassadors for Christ. And that's something that I've always kind of looked up to you about. You know, you're very open about your faith. You're not going to hide around it or, you know, whatever. You're going to be bold about it and be fearless in a lot of ways. And even like with your family, trying to raise them up and discipline them and instruct them in the way of the Lord. Is there anything that you do in particular with discipline and just with leading them spiritually?
Yeah, spiritually, you know, it's we always attend services together when given the opportunity. You know, in-season baseball is tough, like in terms of that. I mean, I have to find some different avenues there, but when the opportunity is there, man, we attend services as a family. I want to be involved as much as I can with extracurriculars at the church. I want to utilize the community. I want to get my kids around Christ-like minded people. I mean, you are who you hang out with a lot of times, and just get people that are on a similar wavelength. From that standpoint, I mean, just like I talk about my players, I want to be accessible. Like, man, when things present itself, like whether it's a fall festival at the church and like we do a trunk or treat, like, hey man, I'll donate my car, I'll decorate it, I'll build a board game just so I can be there for those handful of hours to be accessible to the community and try to share Christ and have a good time with those people. Like, this is finally, my kids are of the age that they can start going to youth groups and things like that. Like I said, my daughter's about to turn 13 come the fall, to where she's getting to the point where she can actually travel with youth groups and go to these camps and things. So I want to empower her in that way and give her that opportunity to do that. Like I said, I kind of hit on it earlier, just trying to live in a Christ-like manner. Or let's like I said, are the actions lining up to what it is I'm saying? Type deal. Use the moments of failure as teaching moments. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, there's so many things that my daughter, my son, my wife, myself go through. And like I said, you don't always get that easy answer. And I want to use those moments more or less to instill Christly principles using my experience, more or less with what I've been presented with in terms of how that can help them, more or less. And failure is growth. You know, I mean, as long as you're willing to learn and adapt from that. Pray with my kids. I wish I could say I did it daily, but I do get with them. I want to teach them how to pray, more or less. I mean, it's not like super specific, but in terms of just being thankful, thank God for what we have. Because I always ask them every time before we pray, like, you have prayer requests? Like, are they a selfless mind? Are they thinking about others? And I try to give them like requests and things that I've been taking on or been weighing on my heart, so maybe they can kind of understand how I think and what it is I pray about. So that's something I do with them. I'll get together and we'll read Bible or do devotionals. I mean, right now, like I said, I attend Riverside Baptist Church right up the road. Brother Jared has daily devotionals that he just puts out on Facebook Live, and like I'll get with Cameron and Grace, and we'll sit down and we'll just kind of listen. There's 5-6 minute excerpts, but just taking that opportunity just to present, more or less, and know that that it is important, more or less. And then if I'm not willing to show interest in it, can I expect my kids to show interest as well? You know, I mean, I want to be one of those to where I want to give my kids the choice. One where the other, there's not an expectation. We all went to church. Like, I could wake up and feel terrible, but like, and just whatever, but like, no, we're going, kind of thing. Like, I don't want them to feel that they have to go because I want them to go. I want them to go because they want to go, because they've developed that relationship and they started to understand who Christ is and what he can do for them and how he can help them moving forward in life. And it takes time. You know, that's something I kind of talked to our BCM director about a lot. Cory, he's been a big support structure for me there at Tulane. Of just, how do you know when is the right time? Like when should I expect, I guess, my daughter to give her life to Christ? That kind of thing. Like, is it 8, 9, 10? Like, is it an age? Like, that kind of thing. Because like I said, I have 2 different age kids, and I think they both know who Christ is, but neither one of them per se has given their life just yet, type deal. So, and it's something that kind of weighs on me a little bit. That's something I struggle with personally, and that's something like I said, I use him, Cory, as a support structure and his experience, because he has daughters that actually just graduated high school and going into college, and obviously live the mission. So to continue to pray, continue to walk the path, continue to have faith, continue to be consistent with my kids, and just put it in the Lord's hand that the Holy Spirit will convict them one day, hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, Coach. I mean, I couldn't agree more with the things that you're saying there. And one thing that really stuck with me is that you said, you know, you are the sum of the people that you hang out with. And I've heard that a couple times now in books that I've read and people that I've talked to, and just transitioning a little bit into the leadership side of things. You know, who's one of the best leaders that you've been around, and then why did you think of that person?
Yeah, you know, it would definitely be my stepdad. Because I get kind of like emotional about some of this stuff, but definitely him. I always feel like he chose me.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. He's very consistent, Christ follower, works hard, somebody that I can respect for sure. Always willing to get his hands dirty. Never going to ask you to do anything that he wouldn't do. So just a lot of respect. He was a guy that was always there for me, always has been. Somebody I could always confide in. Good times, bad times, those kind of things. So from a leader standpoint, like I said, it's just the consistency, the accessibility, the willingness to be there, the care factor, the wanting to help, the wanting to teach, the investment, I mean, to me, it's about developing a meaningful relationship, something that's going to stick, something that's going to last, something that you're going to continue to grow upon. It's not a flash in the pan, that kind of thing. So from a leader standpoint, I mean, yeah, he would be kind of the ideal guy. He's more, I guess, a leader from the relationship side of things versus, I mean, yeah, spiritually he's there too, being a Christ follower, but I probably look at other guys more so as a spiritual leader, and just even guys from a leadership standpoint in terms of like strength and conditioning. Like I'm gonna look at guys that I know have been in the business longer. They've had more experiences than I have. They've had more shortcomings and successes. They can hit on things, and they can tell me adjustments they've made over the course of time. So like from a strength leadership, I mean, it's every director and even some of the peers that I've worked with. From Ben Pollard being a guy to give me my first chance, to Matt Bayless to introducing me to a different style of training, HIT training, and team building philosophy, to Chad Smith of how to relate to your players and build a relationship on a personal level, at a Kyle Spear that, I mean, that's just kind of there for you. Big support structure. I mean, he respects you from the standpoint of let you do your job, but if you need help, he's there to help you and lift you up. I mean, all of them have redeeming qualities for sure. But I mean, yeah, those would be what I'd call like strength leaders. And, like I said, they all have different things that I would pull them into that per se. But like I said, I think all of them just more or less, that kind of keeps coming back to, it's just that relationship and what you can build, and your willingness to stay in touch, and the willingness to call a guy or pick up a phone call or send an email or a text message or a Christmas card or just whatever it is. And just don't, like, once you don't necessarily work for them anymore, just let that relationship die. Like you just kind of continue to let it grow and progress and bloom, if you will. So.
Yeah, and you said so much content that I would love to like dive into a little bit further. But I mean, from the standpoint of maintaining a relationship with somebody that you can be able to continue to build that relationship with, mentors, friends, leaders that you look up to. But the thing about that's touching my heart is just seeing you with your passion, how much you care about your kids and how much you care about wanting them to come to know Christ, and being able to have a support structure where there's other people who can kind of, instruct you and guide you and encourage you in that. Because ultimately, and like what you're saying, the hard part is to trust the Lord with that's out of our control. And to hear you say how the person you look up to is your stepdad, I mean, the characteristics that he's embodying, it's ultimately what we're seeing from God, our Heavenly Father. Consistent, showing us discipline that God talks about in Hebrews. He disciplines us because he loves us, and ultimately being accessible. I mean, God is like the most quintessential accessible, being out there. And so I just think, it's so, I feel so touched to be able to invite it into this journey, to hear how much you care about your family, and how much it means so much to you to have leaders in your life being able to pour into you. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, with the journey that you've been in with strength and conditioning. What would you say has been one of the biggest things that God has kind of taught you through this amazing journey you've had so far? And what have you kind of learned from that?
Yeah, lessons learned. I mean, I put down a couple of bullets. Understanding that I'm not always going to get my way. I mean, that's probably definitely as a young strength coach, when you read all the books, man, or you've seen how your mentors have done things, and then you finally get put in a situation where you can be the guy, run programs, and you set up this immaculate program, and it's perfect, and you're ready to go, and then you get hit with the situation of whether it's NCAA or the coach doesn't want to train as much, or your hours are less, the days aren't lined up just right, those kind of things. I mean, like, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Can't sit on your hands. It's just kind of like talking about just perseverance, more or less. You want strength? Well, guess what? Here you go, brother. Like, here's some hard times for you. Let's figure it out. And understanding what it is you do have, and be thankful for what you do have, and make the best of that situation. And then just as you develop that rapport with your players, your coaches, and those relationships improve, like I've kind of hit on earlier about, coach, how can I reinsert myself? Like, can I get 20 minutes here, like in practice? Or like, coach, this is something that I've been looking over for a couple of years. I think it could help us. Is there any way we can get an extra day, or just whatever it is? You just have to kind of take it in stride, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let it get you down, because like I said, every school I've been to has its, like, I don't want to say issues, but just shortcomings that you have to overcome.
Yeah.
More or less, just whatever it is. And then, like I was talking about earlier, just having that flexibility and understanding, I guess, different training modalities and methodologies that's going to work in that situation. Communication is paramount. I mean, I kind of hit on it already, but just you developing meaningful relationships with your players, with your coaches, with your support staff, up and down. I like something like the older I've gotten is the importance of developing relationships, even with the ADs upstairs. I mean, those are guys that can help you get jobs down the road. You know, I mean, it's more about like investing in your future, taking that 5 minutes every now and then, just if you cross paths with them, just like, hey, how you doing? Kind of thing. How can I help you? How can I be a servant for you? How can I make the program better? Those kind of things, and just kind of planting that seed, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it may not grow tomorrow, but like I said, in a couple of years' time, I mean, it could sprout into something that you'd be very happy that you did plant that seed. So being positive, not pessimistic, you know, that's this kind of like I was hitting on earlier, like you're going to get told no a lot more than you're going to get told yes, kind of thing. And just don't let it get you down at all. You got to be strong, man. Have faith in it. Have faith in yourself, type deal, to where just because, like I said, what you learned, where like you can adapt, like you have that ability, like it's in there. You just, it might be untapped a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It might cause, that might be more or less you having to call the coaches, you reading some books. It might be you communicating more, just whatever it is. I mean, there's different avenues, I guess, to get there and get the answers that it is that you're looking for, type deal. And like the last thing I wrote is like, so just embrace the challenge, you know? I mean, just like almost like wear it as a mantle in a sense, like take pride in that, like bring it. Good. I'm glad it's difficult because I know it's going to pay off for me in the long run.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that me and Coach Jewett talk about, even baseball guys. That's his big thing. Like, got a bad call? Good. Bring it. Next time. No big deal.
Okay.
Short-term memory. Those kind of like things. I mean, that's just how you have to think. Mm-hmm. You can't dwell on those kind of stuff because it's only going to slow you down. It can't allow you to move forward. So, I mean, definitely lessons learned. Those are things I wish, like day one, I don't know, for sure. And like I said, a lot of these, and I'm sure this list will continue to change and grow the longer I'm blessed to be in this field. And I turn, because I mean, even today, I'm still learning stuff, more or less, whether it's just in the field of strength conditioning, relationship, spiritual, like, I mean, I guess some of it too, I guess you have to be open to grow as well. You can't be closed-minded. Like the willingness to learn has to be there as well. So, yeah, exam one, I've definitely told you before, Charlie, I don't know it all, and I never will. And like I said, I want to be open to new ideas and those type of things. Like I said, so I can continue to grow as a person.
Well, Coach, I think from start to finish, you've really laid out very clearly what it means to build lasting impact, right? We talk about this is the Built to Last podcast. Well, there have been people who have poured into you, right? That now you're taking those things and you're pouring into your kids, your student athletes, and now even our listeners too, where people are learning from your journey. And like you said, it's not just a one-time thing. It's staying in touch. It's making an impact beyond just the sets and reps. And that is so evident with everything you share with us today, Coach. And, you know, I want to follow up more with you, and I'm sure the listeners might want to do the same. We can go forever talking about this stuff, but if the listeners want to get in touch with you to keep going with this stuff, is there a way they can reach out to you best?
Oh, of course, man. Email is probably going to be best. I mean, it's located on the Tulane Athletic Staff Directory. It's COHOUSTO at Tulane.edu. So co-housto. So just drop the L off my last name. Yeah, I didn't pick that, but you just know how these universities get with some of these emails. But yeah, man, just write an email, reach out to me. We can set up whether it be a Zoom meeting, a phone call, because I'm always one, I like to talk in person a lot more than text and things like that. But normally it's just good to kind of send out an email so then we can just set up a better time, more or less, where both of us have freedoms and we can sit down and take notes and share ideas, and or maybe even like kind of how y'all did, just send me a couple of questions so I can be really prepared and be very on point and with what questions you do have.
Yeah, and that's something that I've always admired about you, Coach. I was telling Justin before the show started, like anytime I've reached out to you, you're like immediate, very quick response to get back, and like you've just maintained a good relationship. It's not only one side of like one person reaching out, but like a true relationship is like both people pouring into each other and just trying to spur each other on and brother each other on towards love and good deeds. So, and that's what we want to do right now. We want to end the show with doing some prayer time. Can you just share with us, maybe one or two things that we could be praying for you and your family during this time of COVID-19, and we have a little bit more free time getting ready for the summer?
Perfect. Yeah. Strength and guidance for all our leaders, man, locally, nationally, within the university, as they're making decisions in their respective places, as we're starting to kind of reintegrate back into society, that God just continues to guide them or convict them in a manner that's going to be good for his will. And obviously the student athletes on my end, the people that I'm working with, that they stay healthy, that they can get back in a normal training environment, that they can keep that passion and hunger to want to train and want to be back and want to be with their teammates and staff and continue to build something special here at the university. So that's something for sure. And then even myself personally, it's just to keep us all motivated, not to stay idle and keep moving forward and keep learning to grow and learn and yearn and thirst for the Lord and thirst for knowledge and just want to be a better version of myself.
Awesome. Well, let me go ahead and pray us out. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for just this amazing time with this podcast and his ministry, and for Coach Houston, for him being willing to share and be vulnerable, God. And I just thank you for his testimony and his openness, God. I ask that you would continue to bless him with his family as he's in a position of leadership, leading his family, and also with a position with the baseball guys and the track and field throwers. I pray, God, that he would just continue to be a fearless ambassador of you. I pray for him personally, Lord, that he would thirst for you like never before in his whole life, and that he would grow in his knowledge and understanding of you, God, and your attributes. And Lord, we ask during this time in this season that you would bless the leaders, not only of Tulane and the university, but also nationally, Lord. Our president and our political leaders, God, you'd give them wisdom and guidance and allow them to navigate how to open back up the country, Lord, and what that looks like. And most of all, I pray that there would be a revival and that they would come to know you, Lord, and that your name would be glorified through this difficult time. And Lord, again, we thank you for your grace and for the opportunity to encourage others. And so we just ask that this podcast would bless our listeners. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to the Built to Last podcast, where we encourage, equip, and empower coaches to live out their core values where they live, work, and wherever they build relationships. Have a blessed day, striving to build lasting impact.